the Regional Digital Campaign Director at the Natural Resources Defense Council, and a member of the Reusable New York City Coalition. Raine played a crucial role in making Skip the Stuff a reality in New York City in January this year. This new law requires restaurants to provide utensils, napkins, stirrers, condiments, and the other items only upon customers' request. It's a common sense law that benefits both businesses and the environment. Zero Waste Ithaca advocates for the same law in Tompkins County. And we believe Skip the Stuff is a rule that we believe can garner agreement across all political spectrums. We hope that the county legislature will respect the will of the people and unanimously pass this law in the coming months for our county as well. Reducing the amount of discarded materials sent to Ontario County landfill and Seneca Meadows landfills is both an economic and environmental imperative. It will alleviate the suffering of people living nearby due to odors, traffic, and toxic contamination. Skip the Stuff is one way to help us move closer to achieving our zero waste aspirations. Raine, thank you so much for being here today. The floor is yours. Please take it away. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that lovely introduction, Yayoi. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, Raine, and I'm just going to chime in again. I don't know if you heard me saying before about trying to keep folks on time, to a schedule. So you guys have till about 10:30, so it's not very long for your presentation and Q&A.
We'll be speedy. And just to confirm, should I present my screen now, or did I hear you say that the slides are printed?
We have them printed. It's up to you if you want to present them.
Okay, great. Yeah, I'll present my screen. Can everybody see?
Yes.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Chair Corman, for the invitation, and Yayoi as well. Really excited to chat about Tompkins County's opportunity to ditch the useless utensils. I'll start by just a little background on how I got involved in this fight. Back in 2019, I ordered dinner online at least 100 times. I checked, and that's not that far off of the national averages. It works out to about twice a week. Every order that I placed included some version of these increasingly desperate instructions, just saying, don't send me utensils. I don't need them. Keep the little chopsticks away. I'm sitting at home. But after realizing that no one was listening, I decided to save every utensil that I didn't want for a year, just to see how much waste a single household could accumulate. And so the result, this picture was taken, I think, early 2020, before the pandemic. My pile is maybe 5 times as big at this point, but the result was one New Yorker with hundreds of unwanted, unnecessary single-use waste, all bound for the trash. This led me to realize that the big challenge that we're facing is that meal delivery is actually creating an environmental nightmare, one household at a time. And so I'll break down what I mean when I say that. So we know that online delivery is surging, eating in is the new dining out. I think this became even more apparent in the wake of the pandemic. I mentioned that, I ordered dinner 100 times in a year. That worked out to about just twice a week, which was not that far off of national averages. The environmental nightmare comes to light. The last waste characterization study that the Department of Sanitation in New York City did in 2017, they analyzed a tiny fraction of the city's waste for a year and still found 583 tons of single-use plastic plates, cups, and utensils. So that really gives you a sense of the scale of the problem that we're dealing with. And then this is one household at a time. Approximately 30% of people in the US are ordering food at least once a week. So, this is the thing that we're going to be seeing across cities, towns, states in the country. And so the solution, it's actually pretty simple. Skip the stuff. So skip the stuff, is a piece of legislation that asks restaurants and meal delivery platforms to provide single-use utensils, condiments, and napkins by request only. This is very, very simple and sweet. So I'll go into just a couple highlights of the legislation. So we're basically saying that all of those single-use things, utensils, condiments, napkins, and also extra food containers, the default is that you would not receive them. This is not an outright ban on anything. If a customer wants them, they just have to request them. It's just making these items opt in. The delivery apps have to default to no for these items and provide an option for customers to request them. And then in New York City, the way the law is structured is restaurants and delivery apps, they receive warnings for the first year. That's a really great way to educate businesses on the new law. And then after the first year, they do receive fines for non-compliance. Some of the really big benefits of this legislation, one of the things I like to lead with is that there are some really big savings for restaurants. Los Angeles passed similar legislation a couple of years ago, and when they kind of went back to some of the restaurants after to see, how's this actually going, they noted that some of them were saving between $3,000 and $10,000 a year, and we know that restaurants operate on razor-thin margins. That's big savings. The second thing that we want to highlight is waste reduction. So happy to hear that a big part of the committee meeting today, so many things are focused on waste. One of the big issues with single-use utensils is that they can't be recycled. The type of plastics that they're made of, the size, the fact that they can't be recycled means that they're just going to be diverted to landfills or incineration. And the third big thing is that taking action on single-use plastic is action on climate change. Plastics are petrochemicals, and reducing our use does help us tackle an important contributor to greenhouse gas emissions. So as Yayoi mentioned, I work with the NRDC. I'm also a member of the Reusable NYC Coalition. We worked for the last 3 years to build awareness and support for this legislation in New York City. I'll just give you some highlights of the tactics that we employed, all of which are easily transferable right here in Tompkins County. So the first is on policy advocacy. The coalition collaborated closely with Prime Bill sponsors on language. We also created an easy-to-read one-pager to promote to a wider audience. There's no need to reinvent the wheel with this legislation. The existing law can be tweaked to fit county needs. The second is art to inspire action. We worked with a New York City-based studio called Party of One to create some really funny utensils that brought to life the insanity of the useless utensils that we're tackling. And all of these graphics are available. This presentation, I'm happy to share a link after this meeting, and they're available for use for promotion on social media. In order to make sure that we're building broad, diverse support, we built and maintained connections with people and organizations who could go out and make the message their own in their own communities. Here are just a few of them. And so identifying local groups who can champion this effort will be really crucial. We hosted 15 phone banks in 2021 and 2022 with 350 Brooklyn, driving calls into legislators. And activists were able to kind of speak very persuasively about their own personal experience, because everyone's got that drawer stuffed to the gills with all of these things that you didn't ask for. And so engaging local activists can really help build momentum around this issue. Thought leadership is crucial, engaging local press to help spread the word further, thinking about things like opinion pieces, press releases, other earned media strategies with local businesses, environmental organizations, local officials, and I've included some examples of releases and press hits for the New York City legislation below. And so in New York City, these tactics helped secure a supermajority of sponsorship of this bill. We had a rally on the steps of City Hall. We had 35 people testify at a public hearing, and City Council ultimately passed this bill 43-7. Skip the Stuff was signed into law in New York City on February 2nd of this year. It takes effect at the end of July. And so the Department of Sanitation, who are the main agency responsible for enforcement, they're getting ramped up on outreach and education to restaurants and meal delivery platforms. And so just to wrap up on the presentation, what's next? So the Reusable NYC Coalition, we're focusing on how this bill is implemented. And so some of it's thinking about education for consumers, for restaurants, and the general public about the new law, working with the Department of Consumer Affairs on plans for education and enforcement, and then the reason I'm here today, which is, continued advocacy on this issue throughout the state. So we're thinking about state and county level work in New York. And so Tompkins County has a really unique opportunity to be at the forefront of New York's reusable revolution by implementing Skip the Stuff. And as more localities adopt these measures, we can help reduce waste statewide, save restaurants money, change our single-use culture, and tackle climate change. And so I know I just kind of breezed through a ton of slides. I want to thank everybody very much. My email is here at the bottom if folks have questions coming out of this. And I know we've got just 3 minutes left, so if there's anything I can answer at this time, let me know.
Thank you, Raine. Any questions from committee members?